enough of that messing around. Now this lesson is, we are going to continue in our Jazz Improv Theory, and we are going to talk about scale choices. And this is a very in-depth subject, and it has a lot of, I'm going to show you 8 different examples when it comes to just strictly a major sound in this lesson. Now I plan on covering minor and modal sounds and then altered dominant sounds. Now, strictly speaking, we're going to talk in this lesson just about major sounds. So a lot of this can also apply to a lot of pop, country music, and what have you, but it's also found in jazz. And it's how we take a set of chord changes, whether it be 1, 2, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 chords, whatever, and how we interpret those chords and what we can do with them that's going to give us some freedom and give us some choices that's going to make our soloing interesting. Now, so far we've worked on our cells, developing our cells with rhythmic displacement and permutations and all that stuff, but this is where we get the cells from, is from the scale choices. So a lot of this we have to decide what notes we want to leave out, what notes we want to put in. Now, we're not going to talk about chromatic sounds per se at this point. We're just going to talk about scales, major scales, and also minor blues scales. We'll also have some Lydian things in there, which are major scales, just starting on different tones. And so this is about a 30-minute lesson, and we're going to just focus in on these major sounds. Now, I wish I would have learned this stuff a long, long time ago, because a lot of rock music, pop music, and country music, it's all major sounds. Christian rock, you know, all that kind of stuff. Contemporary worship, a lot of major sounds. And what you do with that is going to make a big difference in how you see it. A lot of times, the way that I used to do it is, you know, you'd play like a major scale or whatever, and then start eliminating notes and trying to figure out which notes work good and which don't and all that. Well, this is a surefire way of limiting your choices to a handful of scales that you know are going to work, and that'll offer you some freedom in it. Then you can just wail on those scales. Now, I'm not going to show you any scale fingerings or any of that kind of thing. That's different. That's a different lesson. Now, you can go out and get all those. But this is just on what scales to use, and more importantly, here's a set of chord changes. What scales am I going to use against it? So I'm going to show you 8 different common major sounds that you can now, that we'll study, and you can, when you look at other songs, you'll see, that's what he's talking about. There's a 4 going to a 3, or a 5 going to a 4, back and forth. Those kind of things. So this all, I'm sure is going to really help you. So let's get into it with our first major sound. Before we get started again, another thing we will not be covering is arpeggios. I want to cover that a little differently. We're just talking scales, and we're also not going to talk about how to solo over a set of changes and use chords that aren't being played. And that's another skill that's a little different. This is the beginning of just playing over the chords that are written and trying to identify the key. Okay, let's first get started again with just strictly a major sound.